Campaigning begins in Thailand. It's the country's first election since a military coup in 2014. But will the vote be free and fair? And is the military ready to release its grip on power? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. When Thailand last held an election 5 years ago, it ended with mass protests and a coup. After several delays, the military government has finally announced a general election for March 24th. Campaigning is well underway. 3 of the main players vying for seats include the Democrat Party, the military and Pheu Thai. That's the party of former Prime Ministers Thaksin and Yingluck Shinawatra. We'll bring in our guests in just a moment, but first this report from Pheu in Bangkok.
The leaders of Thailand's political parties are in full stride towards an election. After so many delays, the announcement of a date was welcomed at the headquarters of the largest party, Pheu Thai.
It is time to set the future of our nation by voting for the right people to work for our country. 5 years under military rule is longer than any democratic government we have had in the past 80 years.
Pheu Thai was in power when the military staged a coup in 2014. It was the second time the army had removed a government led by the Shinawatra clan, who have steered parties to every election win since 2001. Siblings Thaksin and Yingluck Shinawatra, both former prime ministers, are in exile, avoiding jail terms for corruption and negligence. The leaders of this party are worried the campaign and the election itself won't be free and fair, and are particularly concerned that the courts could be used against them, something they've had plenty of experience with. 2 previous versions of the party were dissolved by the courts for electoral fraud. Now there's an axe hanging over Pheu Thai again. 3 leaders were charged with sedition for violating the military's ban on political activities last year. A guilty verdict could result in dissolution again. As a safety net, a backup party has been registered.
We must believe in the judicial system and in democracy. Are we concerned? Yes, we are, but there's nothing we can do about it. What is best for now is to move forward and deliver our work.
Most experts believe Pheu Thai will be the most popular party again, but it may not get enough support to form a governing coalition, and that could lead to more political instability.
After the election, if the party that gets most votes in the House cannot form the government, and it's going to be the other way around, then people might find that their votes are not respected.
Whatever the outcome, the ultimate power will remain with the military, which will hand-pick the upper house. There may also be an unelected prime minister. For the moment, most Thais have got what they've been asking for, but there are still uncertain times ahead. Pheu, Al Jazeera, Bangkok.
Well, Thailand has had 21 attempted and successful military coups since 1932. The most recent was in 2014 when the army took power after a constitutional court invalidated an election result. In 2017, the new king signed a military-drafted constitution paving the way for a return to democracy. Then, last month, the government lifted its ban on political activities and, earlier this week, Thailand's Election Commission announced the vote would be held on March 24th. So let's bring in our guest today, and joining us via Skype from Khon Kaen in Thailand is historian David Streckfuss. In Bangkok, Nattha Mahatthana, a pro-democracy election activist, and also via Skype from Hiroshima in Japan, Pavin Chachavalpongpun, Associate Professor at the Centre for Southeast Asian Studies at Kyoto University. A very warm welcome to all of you. Pavin, if I could start with you. The military has postponed these elections a number of times. Are they definitely going to take place now on March 24th?
Yeah, I just hope that this time, they will not postpone once again. I think the current government has been under extreme pressure, from domestic audience and also from the international communities. As you said, that it has been postponed for already 5 times. It had to go ahead this time. I think the government has shown that it has become rather ineffective, in the past few years. And with all this pressure, I think it's very difficult now for the government to make any kind of postponement. So.
Okay. David, do you agree with that? Do you think that it's the pressure from inside and outside of Thailand that's forced the military now, after 5 years, to finally bring about this vote?
Well, it's hard to say because pressure within the country has been illegal until just recently. Also, it's possible that the palace played a role in this because the new king, it was said, wanted to have an election before he went to the coronation ceremony. To arrive crowned in a more democratic Thailand. So that might have been a factor as well.
OK. Nattha, how democratic do you think this Thailand's going to be? I mean, let's start with the election itself. How free and fair is that likely to be?
It's very unlikely. First of all, the government has refused to, change its status to become the caretaker government. And by being the government with full authority, it can do everything that the normal government before the election cannot. For example, it can pass any bill with the parliament without any opposition. It can use the budget freely, including the budget that will oblige the next government. It can move around and transfer the government officer the way it like. And it still has the Article 44 which enable the leader of the NCPO or the Prime Minister himself to issue any order without any accountability. So this is the context, and the free and fair election is very, very unlikely. The media is still very much censored, and with the special order to be able to ban any media anytime, or even shut down a media agency anytime. So this is what we are before the election.
OK, so Pavin, if we look at the lay of the land, if we think that there is going to, or if we assume that there's going to be no intervention from the military, if we look at the Pheu Thai party, the Democrat Party, of course, Thailand's oldest party in the country, and the party that seems to be aligned with the military, the Palang Parashat party, which one is the most popular at the moment?
Well, I mean, it still has to be the Pheu Thai party. After 4 or 5 years, Yingluck Shinawatra, now running away from Thai law, continue to be so highly popular. Thaksin himself, being overthrown in 2006, has been living in Dubai mainly, still again has remained so popular. For example, he just has his Monday talk, with the Thai people from overseas, and that proved to be, again, very much attracted, by his supporters, in the north and the northeast region. So exactly because the government has become so ineffective and has failed in so many policies, that kind of make people realize that, Thaksin could be the answer, to what Thailand needs during the past 5 years. So if I have to guess, then I think the Pheu Thai would still, hold very much votes, and also, as I said, very popular and still wanted, by his supporter. But then we cannot really underestimate also the pro-junta party like Palang Pracharat, with all the conditions set up in order to allow this party, to win more vote as well. And we haven't even talked about the constitution. So, I mean, it could be a close call, but I still think that should the election be held free and fair, the Pheu Thai might, have a chance to win more than any parties.
David, do you think the military will let Pheu Thai party win?
Well, I mean, the Bangkok elite and the military that's represented the Bangkok elite has attempted over the last 10 years, 12 years, to try to get Thaksin and more democratic-leaning groups out of the scene. And so the 2006 Constitution set up a system in which they hoped the Pheu Thai wouldn't win. The Pheu Thai won. I think that probably Pavin is right, that Pheu Thai, it seems like here in the Northeast that all the red shirt supporters of the Pheu Thai had just gone into hibernation, and now they're right back where they were.
That's interesting. So you've got first-hand knowledge up there of the scene on the ground, because, of course, that's a very Thaksin-friendly area, Shinawatra-friendly area. I mean, they transferred their loyalty to Yingluck when she also took the prime ministership. What inroads has the military managed to make into those rural areas? Because it has been giving out cash handouts, rural subsidies, cheap loans. How far has it managed to win support over to their side?
I don't think it appears to be very much. I don't think anyone's mind was changed after this 5 years that somehow the coup was a good idea. People still feel aggrieved, and that aggrievement comes from having their franchise in the elections taken away. So, I think probably Pheu Thai will win, but the Constitution, this new Constitution, sort of ensures that the election results will be meaningless, because even a coalition will not allow the popular will of the majority to be expressed.
No, so just to expand a little bit on that for us, the new constitution that the military has drawn up and how that manages to consolidate its power even beyond the election.
That's right. They will continue to. I mean, the Senate is already in the hands of the military, and it will only take 1/4 of the elected parliament to be able to select a non-elected member of parliament, presumably the head of the military right now.
OK. And Nattha, there's also this 20-year national strategy, isn't there, that I've been reading about, which, again, is drawn up by the military, and the military says any new government must follow it. What does that involve?
Hi. The national strategy will play its role after the new government is in place. The implication is that because the content is drafted in a very vague manner, and there's the rule that if the government in charge has issued any policy that is in conflict with the national strategy, it can go to the lawsuit, and the cabinet could have to just stop its role at any time that the verdict came out, and that is the highest risk for the new government, because any kind of policy can, for example, be against the principle of sufficiency economy that is written in the national strategy. So with this kind of vague policy in the strategy, it is a threat to any new government to go against it easily in the view of the court.
Pavin, it's fair enough to say, isn't it, that Thais were pretty fed up with the sort of seemingly endless street protests that were going on before the coup, and with the military taking power, it did bring some stability and a sense of order, and we have seen a relatively peaceful 5 years in the country. I mean, could you credit the military with this transition period?
No, not at all. The fact that there has been no street protest, that's simply because of the Article 44 that prevent all kind of, protests, or, they do not allow people to assemble. In fact, more than 5 people. That on the surface, it seems to be, they seem to be able to give some kind of order to society. But it's just like water simmering, and it could kind of like explode anytime. I just like to bring the attention to the fact that, in fact, when we have no street protest, I think the battle has moved on to cyberspace instead. And you could see that Thai people has become, as you said, not only being fed up with the whole situation, but they have become more and more politically active, especially online. They have come to criticize quite, openly about the inability of the government in so many, failing policies. And, for example, the fact that the government had earlier the plan to postpone the election, citing the overlapping time with the coronation, that almost, kind of drove, the Thai people to the edge, and that came up with, protests on the Twitter. So you could see that the order could only see on the surface, as I said, but at the end of the day, I think Thai people just so ready now to go to the polls.
Okay. I do want to stick with perhaps the benefit that the military brought during this period, though, just to play devil's advocate, because it was a time when Thailand transitioned from a very popular king to a rather less popular son. It was quite a sensitive transition. And some might say that no party would have been particularly pleased to have been in power and to have overseen that transition. And so perhaps all sides were happy to let the military take control during that time. David, would you agree with that point?
Well, I think the military wanted to make sure that it was in control to oversee that transition. However, that transition having been made, I'm not so sure that the monarchy is in lockstep with the monarchy, or the military and monarchy are not necessarily on the same page. They may have separate interests, and so yes, the military wanted to. Naming itself as a defender of the monarchy, it wanted to oversee that process. But at the same time, there's a law here that's been used, the Lese Majeste law, which has been used with abandon by the military in the name of the monarchy. Well, the new king has ordered attorneys, the prosecution department, to end all prosecutions of Lese Majeste. So last year, there were no new cases. And so one of the main weapons of the military has been taken away by the monarchy.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because that law is most feared there in Thailand. Nattha, should the Pheu Thai party win, as David mentioned before, just earlier in the discussion, the elite doesn't like this party. So what fears that the Pheu Thai party will be allowed to win and form a government, or would people take to the streets again?
I think the fact that the election has been postponed for 5 times is something that is linked to the fact that Pheu Thai party is still very popular. And as long as the poll shows that it may win, the government try its hardest to postpone the election. Now that the election date is set, I think they have to come out with new strategy. And one obvious one that most people are afraid of is that they may just dissolve the party with very complicating law that the Election Commission has issued. It's very, very easy for anyone to break a few rules or a minor rules in the whole list. And that could cause the party to be out of the game. And I think this is something we can foresee before the election if the party is not careful enough.
Okay, but then will the red shirts accept that, or will we see them return onto the streets?
I think the people power to come out and protest on the street, it has been shown through the We Vote movement that I take part in leading, that the people don't have enough power to come out and express the way they used to do when Thailand has the red shirt movement, partly because of the very strict order and the way the military government has ruled. I don't think there will be the big enough protest anymore in the way we used to have, because there's no more leader that is willing to take that kind of risk, and there is no more resource that is enough to bring out that kind of power. For my movement and my friends' movement, it has been up to the level that maybe we can push for the election date, but it is not enough to just get this government out of the way before the election. So this is the fact. This is the context we are.
Pavin, you mentioned before Thaksin's weekly podcast that he's just launched in Thailand, which he's obviously broadcasting from exile in Dubai. I mean, he's clearly prepared to enter this fight in the run-up to the election. Do you think he's angling for a return?
I think in his mind, of course, I like to think that he wants to return to Thailand, even though in reality, it would be so difficult for him to do so. But I think the priority for Thaksin is not about him returning home. I think the first step would be to ensure that his party, the Pheu Thai, would be able to win, majority once again, and then to kind of bring back, some kind of power back in the hand of Syrian rule, and of course, in the hands of the Pheu Thai party. So that would be the case. But as everyone else in this panel, explained, it would be so difficult, even if Thaksin party would win the majority and Thaksin parties would be allowed to form a government. It would be so difficult under the current constitution that would give overwhelming power to the upper house over the lower house. That would make the life of the new government so difficult. And on top of that, should the new government prove to be too strong for the old elite, to control, we can also expect another round of military coup. We're talking about the new army chief, General Apirat Kongsompong, who has been directly handpicked by the king upon his, assumption of the disposition. He already said to the public that military coup is still an option. So, we're looking ahead. I am not so optimistic, even though we would have an election, even though the Pheu Thai party would win an election, because the road ahead would still be very difficult, not only for the Pheu Thai party, but also to the Thai voters as a whole.
OK. David, let's spare a thought for the Democrat Party. Abhisit Weshachhiwa, he's the leader of the party. He has been Prime Minister in the past. I mean, he said he would not align with the military government after the election. He is, of course, part of the elite. Do we believe him?
Well, I want to make one point from an earlier thing. We're focusing on the Pheu Thai, but along with Pheu Thai, there are millions of new voters coming into the scene this time since the coup, first-time voters, and they really may play a role. There seems to be kind of a youthful movement with some other parties that are also pro-democracy that also might play a role in forming that new government. Okay, as to your question. The Democrat Party has gone through a hard time in trying to decide whether one of its founding principles, not to join a government that came in power through a coup or some sort of very undemocratic constitution like this, that they wouldn't join a military party. They've said that before, but they've ended up also joining. I think that's unclear whether they would ever consider joining with the Pheu Thai in a more democratic front. So I think that one's still hard to call.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to play for. Nattha, just in the last minute or so that we have left, is this Thailand's time to return to democracy?
Yes, it is. This election will be the starting point for us to return to democracy. And even though we have to be under the very undemocratic constitution, if the people believe in its power and go out to vote, and if the democracy side, so-called, could have the landslide winning, it's the beginning point that we can use the parliament mechanism to start to do something. For example, we can the parliament can fix a few laws, if not the constitution, but a few laws that is restricted the people's right. And when those laws are out, there can be another referendum to ask people whether or not the constitution could be fixed. And if the level of vote is enough, then it may be able to push the upper house to comply with the people's voice. So first of all, Thai people need to go out to vote first.
Absolutely. And we'll be watching closely, hopefully a time of great change ahead for Thailand. Many thanks to all our guests today for joining us. David Streckfuss, Nattha, Mahatthana and Pavin Chachavalpongpun. And thank you very much for watching. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, that's aljazeera.com. For further discussion, do go to our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Laura Kyle, and the whole team here in Doha, it's bye for now.